Welcome, everybody, to the Commonwealth Connections podcast. This is Dawson Fields with my co-host, Weston Wilson, as always. And today we got two guests in the studio, father-son duo of Adam and Neil Howard, or I should go probably Neil and Adam, introduce the dad first, with Envisage Wealth Advisors. I did pronounce that right.
You got it. Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
I know people get mixed up on that sometimes.
Hard time pronouncing it.
Yeah, but Envisage Wealth Advisors.
Love
So
it.
thank you all for coming in here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Well, let's just kind of start with some background. Neil, we can kind of start
Sure.
with you. Are you from Lexington area, or
No,
what
I
brought you here?
actually grew up in Owensboro. Family of six, got five brothers and sisters, and came to Lexington, University of Kentucky, and been up here ever since.
Awesome. So when you went to UK, did you major in finance, or is that the route you were always planning on going on?
That was the original route was a engineer until I came across calculus and realized I wasn't very good at calculus.
It stops a lot of people.
And yes, but before it was all said and done, my business degree, I think, ended up having 3 courses of calculus. So ended up being pretty good at that. And so my degree was in finance.
What was the goal? You finished up college. What was the goal? Were you like, yeah, I want to get into financial advising, or?
I think the primary what I was interested in is working for myself. I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to create my own destiny instead of someone else telling me or controlling me, for lack of a better word. I essentially wanted to be my own boss. So that's why I got into the industry. A gentleman who was in the 101st Airborne, I say that because as I tell my story, you'll see that he was military, very strict, do this, do that, this is the right way, this is the wrong way, there's no gray. And that's how I kind of got brought into the business. But it was a very good, eye-opening experience that has boded well for me through the years.
What did it look like starting up on your own? You know, most people, they would just go work for a big conglomerate and sell for them.
Great question, because my start was without salary. So it was strictly you get to eat what you kill. So meaning that if I didn't sell anything, I didn't have any money. It was tough. Banker was my best friend. I would borrow money on 90-day notes just to pay bills. Which actually turned out to be well, because it created a great credit score down the road for me, because I'd always pay them off. But no, it's tough. If you don't have an income coming in on a regular basis that you know that's there, it puts some pressure on you. I mean, you've got to get out and meet people, which has its good. I mean, that's how I got where I'm at,
Right.
is meeting people.
It seems like the banking world was completely different back then. There was an episode I listened to of Phil Greer in town, and he was talking about how he wanted to invest in real estate, and he asked the bank for like $10,000, and they said, "We won't give you $10,000, but we'll give you $500." So he put the $500 in his sock drawer, and he went back to the bank like 3 months later and said, "I'd like to pay off my note. And how much interest do I owe?" And so he paid it off with the interest, and he said, "All right, now how much will you give me?" And they gave him like $1,200, and he just worked it up until he could get the $10,000 and earn the credit with them. And then he bought his first property.
It's wild.
That's very interesting, because quite frankly, I did the same. I didn't buy real estate, but when I got things going where I didn't need to borrow, I went ahead and borrowed anyway, and I would take it and put it in another bank. I don't know why I did that, but I did. And then when that note came due, I would pay it off. And that's how I continued to build my credit of borrowing when I really didn't need it, but I wanted to increase that number, because you're exactly right. I'm sure they haven't changed much nowadays, but once you continue to show that you had the ability to pay it back, they would expand how much you could borrow.
Right.
That was my whole thought process at the time. Of course, I was only 22 and 23
Yeah.
at the time, so there may have been better ways to do it. I don't know.
That's smart, though. That's awesome. I mean, credit cards really weren't a thing,
No.
right? So,
No.
I mean, how else do you build your credit?
Yeah, quite frankly, that's interesting. I don't even remember. I probably did not have a credit card when I was 22.
you start working for yourself. You're having to borrow money. What was kind of going through your mind? How did you build the business? What strategies did you really put in place to grow?
Well, once again, meeting people, getting introduced to individuals and businesses, putting them in the same. What you would think of, and what I wanted to do was help people move financially along the path to retirement or to whatever their goal was to be. So that's what I set out to do. I would do for them what I would do for myself, and that has worked very well throughout the years, is keeping that in mind. In other words, if I tell you that we need to be doing this and this regarding an investment or regarding an insurance contract, I would do it myself, or probably have done it myself. So I'm not going to ask you or show you something that you need to be doing that I, once again, probably haven't done myself.
Right. So father-son duo, how does Adam come into play here?
Wow. I don't know. He never buys lunch. I have noticed that.
Well, let's go and
You notice how quiet he is. He's not saying anything.
Yeah.
No,
Let's-
come back to that.
Here
say,
and there.
Adam, what's your kind of background, real quick, of how you got to the point of working in the same field?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I got into the business in the industry because of my dad. I knew as a kid that he was big on, doing life insurance. That's, Dad, correct me if I'm wrong, where he started his,
That's where my start
where
was.
his start was. So as a kid, I knew that that's what he did. And I remember, I don't know, it might have been third or fourth grade. You're going through one of those things and sheets. What do you want to do when you get older? What do your parents do? And I remember writing insurance on what I was going to do. As I get older, you start learning more about the industry and what Dad actually did. And obviously the spark and the interest of finance was there. I went to Asbury. Asbury did not have a finance major. In fact, it was a business management degree with finance emphasis. And all that really was a bunch of accounting classes. So literally nothing investment, finance oriented. But that's kind of where my start was. Now, full intentions, I was a Spanish minor and a business major. So my whole purpose and goal was to go do some form of international business. I studied abroad in Spain. I learned Spanish, loved to speak Spanish. So that was my full intentions. Last semester of my senior year, Dad connected me with somebody through a annuity company that he worked with and did business with. And, he comes to me, Adam, just give this guy a shout you might actually like and see what it is. And it was in Cincinnati. So I remember in March, this guy called me and he said, we'd love to have you. After talking to Dad, it was a position that a 22-year-old, truthfully, had no business having or working in. So it was a really good opportunity for me. And just after talking and with Dad and getting a little coaching, I mean, it seemed like a perfect opportunity just because it's something I probably didn't deserve at 22 years old, truthfully. But it was great. So I went the corporate route. I was different than Dad, where I didn't really necessarily want to work for myself, but I knew in my head that I didn't want to go work for my dad right out of college. Call it the kid wanting to go do his own thing and so forth and so on. So I worked for an annuity company. I was a wholesaler for them. I was essentially selling to guys like my dad, right, who are building retirement planning and investment planning for his clients. I'm actually the guy selling the product to Dad, who's then going, sharing it with his clients and building a plan with it. Mostly was in Ohio and Chicago area. Had a lot of, was blessed to have a lot of really success and some really good mentors while I was there at that company, obviously along with my dad, that kind of just helped me, move a little quicker than probably the average 22-year-old. Forced me to mature very, very quickly. You could probably talk to my mom and dad or even buddies I went to school with on just how quickly, lifestyles change and
Attitudes.
less learning more of when to be serious and when to, joke around and get around with guys and stuff like that. So Did that for about 3 years. Loved it. But I was ready for the next step. I was looking at other opportunities within the company. And long story short is they took on a little too much risk and ended up having to let go of about 350 of us. So I was 25 when this happened, got let go, didn't know what to do. Got into just a bunch of people that helped connect me with different companies. So within 3 weeks, I think I had a job at an asset management company. So I was wholesaling for them, doing mutual funds and different types of investments there. Same type of scenario. Passion wasn't there. I truthfully was burnt out. I think it just maybe the previous company rubbed me the wrong way, just with the whole situation. So I took this job because truthfully I needed a job, and it's what I knew I was good at. So I did that for a few years. Truthfully, probably not to the best of my ability, but I knew something was empty in there that I just didn't feel fulfilled or truthfully didn't enjoy. So COVID happens. I'm at home. I think it was December of 2020. And I don't remember, I think I came into the office while Dad was working, and I essentially said, look, what does it look like for me to come back and, work with you, work for you? I was burnt out, tired of corporate politics. I think I got to that mature stage in life and realized that I was a lot more like my dad than I thought I was in regards to not wanting to work for someone else. So we had that conversation. I'd say he probably had to do a little convincing on his end too, but made the decision and decided to take a huge leap and move back to Lexington where all my family was, and the rest is history.
That was a really interesting conversation because when Adam told me he was thinking about moving back to Lexington, I was really surprised because he was so connected in the Cincinnati area with soccer, playing on some pretty big teams, playing nationally. Lexington doesn't have that, or did not have it at the time. So it kind of surprised me that he wanted to come back. And I'll never forget this conversation was that, okay, let's talk about this. I said, what do you expect from me? And so we had that conversation, and I looked at him. I said, look, I'm not going to feed you. He goes, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm not going to give you my clients. You're going to have to earn and get your own clients. And I said, here's why. I said, if you don't learn how to get clients, then you never will. I mean, you're not going to survive if somebody's just constantly giving you something. And he agreed, and it worked out well. And then I painted the picture that you're also a little bit different in that you were wholesaling to people like myself and to, brokers and that type thing. And I said, when you start working with individual clients, which is what he was going to move into in a way, he was moving away from working with brokers and working with individual clients. I said, you're going to have a lot of rejection. I mean, there's a lot of competition out there. There's people that just simply are going to hang up on you. They're not going to want to talk to you. And he goes, Dad, do you know what I do? And I said, well, yeah, you wholesale for a mutual fund, an asset management company. He says, yeah, but do you know what I do? And I said, well, what do you do? He says, I call brokers up in New York and stuff. I say, hi, this is Adam Howard. He goes, I slammed the phone down on me.
I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever interacted with somebody from New York or Chicago, but they are a different breed of people.
And it was really funny. As soon as he told me that, I thought, oh my God, you're going to do well. Because you're right. That's all it takes. I mean, if you continue to make phone calls after you get the phone slammed down on you, then you're gonna succeed. Because in this business, you have to learn how to fish, and you got to fish constantly, and it's going to take a while to get bites, and you're going to get better at figuring out how to fish. I'm not a fisherman. I'm sitting there using fishing analogies, but you get the picture. So it was a very humorous time frame, and it opened my eyes up of what kind of person he was, and that he was going to have a great strength in just picking the phone up and calling. And we can fast forward to this day. He's phenomenal. I mean, if you gave him the phone number of every senator in the U.S., he'd pick the phone up and call them.
I think it was just one of those things for me that, 22-year-old when I started doing that. I mean, who likes cold calling people? I mean, truthfully, to this day, it doesn't bother me, but at the end of the day, nobody loves cold calling strangers.
Yeah, you don't wake up and you're like, let's do this.
Can't wait to call this guy who's going to hang up on me today, you know? But I think that avenue for me personally, and Dad would probably agree, probably benefited me more just seeing different experiences as a financial advisor today than just
Oh, there's no
move
doubt.
in with him right out of college, you know?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt. If you, well, this might not sound good, but if you'd have moved in with me right out of college, you probably would not be where you are today. I think you're exactly right.
I probably agree.
The experience that you got by making phone calls, essentially on behalf of someone else, which would be on behalf of the asset management company and the annuity company that you work for, that's who you were making phone calls for, versus now making phone calls for yourself, a wholly different ballgame. So no, there's no doubt that that experience has been your strength.
Right.
There's no doubt.
Well, and even as an advisor, I mean, I think it helps to my advantage of being and having that experience. I mean, it typically goes the other way. You typically start out as an advisor, then you realize how hard it is, and then you go be a wholesaler because at that point you've got a guaranteed salary, you know, commission. Wholesalers do pretty well. So, but I decided to do the opposite. But again, I don't think I'd be, to Dad's point, where I'm at today if I didn't have that wholesaling experience and being able to see one, different sides of the industry, but also clean up my habits and teach me some better ones.
Well, and it's interesting too, and he's not really mentioning this, is that when he says wholesaling, he was an internal wholesaler, which meant he was behind a desk. And you guys know him a little bit. He's not a guy that should sit behind a desk. I mean, he's a people person, and I think he realizes that, and that's why he actually jumped, you know, and came to do what he does now. Is that he got tired essentially of being behind a desk. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, I got out very rarely. I mean, my territories at the asset management company were Chicago and New York. Didn't really go to New York much, but Chicago.
And when he says New York, he's talking Manhattan.
Yeah, I mean, I used to work with the Morgan Stanley team that managed the MLB pension. I mean, those guys, I mean, super good people, but I was just talking to them on the phone. I had a partner up in New York that was actually meeting with them physically in person, but it's different breed of people. Different.
Especially when you're 24 years old.
Well, yeah.
Calling those kind of people.
Yeah.
So,
But it built fearlessness into him. Does that make sense?
Right. When you talk to people managing stuff for MLB, you're kind of not really scared of talking to other people.
no, well, and it's not like I'm saying, hey, you know, Neil, we need to do this with the pension. It's more so of like, what kind of funds do you guys have? You know, does it fit into how we manage the pension? So it's not like we directly worked with those types of guys, but when you're dealing with someone who manages that type of money, you know, it is a different animal.
Yeah. We kind of covered your all's kind of background stories. What does the dynamic look like today? Kind of what's your all's guiding mission statement, kind of values?
Well, when Adam came, we rebranded the entire company. So we were going by a different name at the time that I had formed way back in, I don't know, back in the 1990s or whatever. And so we rebranded to the current name of Envisage. And I'm going to let Adam tell you, hopefully he remembers, what it even means. Because when he came up with the word Envisage, I'm going, yeah, I don't know about that. What does it mean? So go ahead.
So long story short, we were trying to figure out names for the company. And the first one, if you remember, we decided it was going to be Summit Wealth Advisors. And we were pretty firm on that to an extent, but we got nosy and Googling around and we found like 20 other.
I was about to say, it sounds pretty basic.
Some form of Summit Financial Advisor, Summit Wealth Advisor. So I got picking around one day and just trying to think of like random play on words. And I found the word envisage. So envisage is essentially the same word that they use in the UK for envision. But the envisage definition essentially means to picture something that you can't see at the moment. So when you use the play on words, envisage, right, we're obviously trying to plan for the future that it's hard to currently picture. So a little play on words, I guess for us to
like
have
that.
a little story, but it's also a different name. I mean, Dawson joked about it before we started when he was leading off that it's Did I pronounce it right? I mean, I think every person I call or tell who it is, they don't pronounce it right. But hopefully that it's so rare and hard to pronounce it, people are going to at least remember it, right? So that also helps a little bit to an extent.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the first couple years I knew you, I'd be like, wait, am I saying it right? Like, I felt like just want to make sure every time, you know.
Of course.
And you know what's interesting? I used to feel the same way when we came up with the name. And I would look at Adam and go, am I pronouncing it right? he goes,
Trying to say your own company name.
Yeah, exactly. And he goes, well, as long as we both pronounce it the same way, everybody else will too.
It doesn't matter.
No, as long as somebody's getting it right. No, but you asked about dynamic, and I think Dad can talk on this too. I think the first 6 months working together when I came on board was tough. I mean, I think it was me, obviously a father-son deal, right? You hear,
Yeah.
I mean, you hear.
I worked for my dad.
You hear countless people of like, I can never work for family. With family's tough, right? And the first 6 months, it truthfully was, because I think, one, I was trying to figure out how he ran a business, what he expected out of me to do in the business, you know, obviously growing assets, getting clients, things like that. But on his side, he can talk more on it, is him trying to figure out me, how I work as a person, what do I need, what do I not need you to do, things like that. So the first 6 months was definitely tough for me. Now, you know, I wouldn't change it for the world. You know, I couldn't have, I don't think I would have become an advisor if it wasn't for my dad. Somebody else could have called me, a friend, said, hey, Adam, you want to be an advisor? And I probably would have said no.
Well, it's interesting he says that, because it was the first 6 months. And looking back, I think, and I don't know how to say this, but I treated him like a son the first 6 months and realized that I need to start treating him like a business partner. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I had to change my way of thinking in relating to him. And when I did that, it started to really hum, for lack of a better word.
You treat your son, you want to tell him how to do things or show him how you do things. And when you have a business partner, you ask them, what do you think is the best way to go about this?
You're exactly right. You said it better than I did.
And those are two completely different paths. And especially a young man interacting with his dad doesn't want to be told exactly how to do something.
Which is interesting, which gets back to, I think, what he and I both were trying to say when he didn't come with me right out of college. Mm-hmm. Because I think he'll probably admit that if he came with me right out of college, he probably would not have listened to anything I said.
Right.
If I would even still be an advisor.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think that's just human nature. I mean, it does work, and I'm sure there's exceptions to the rule, but I've talked with other people, colleagues that have brought children into the business, and they've all essentially done the same path that Adam and I ended up doing, which is, you know, let your child go somewhere else for a few years and get the youthfulness or whatever you want to call it out, and then
Get rid of your bad habits.
when they come back, then they're more mature.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that sounds bad or not.
No, I think that sounds right. And, you know, I worked with my dad in high school, and I felt like I was passionate about the business, and I was energized, and I wanted to succeed just as bad as he wanted to succeed. And even though I didn't have a stake in the business, I wanted to always perform. I always wanted to be a top performer. I always wanted to do the best. I wanted to not just be the hardest working employee. I wanted to be the best employee, you know. And, you know, I would maybe do something different than he would do, and it still wasn't right, even though it was the best. And it was just like, you know, it would just take all the wind out of your sails. You know, all the wind out of your sails. And I think that transition of treating someone like a partner, you know, when I have a business meeting with my partners, we're genuinely bouncing around ideas, and we collectively as a group bounce around those ideas and come up with a unified decision. And no one's telling anyone exactly what to do.
Well, it is. It's an eye-opener for me, it was, because the first 6 months, here I am trying to be dad, but also bringing a son into the business and telling him this is how things need to be done, instead of listening to him of, like he just mentioned, of how he operates. And when I started listening more to Adam, it brought a whole different perspective on a lot of things. that has helped us tremendously grow the business. It's because of his background when he was working at the asset management company, the background that he had dealing with various other individuals in his corporate world. No, it was a great eye opener. It was a really good thing. Of course, hindsight's great. I wish I'd have learned it a lot quicker. But with him not coming right out of college to work with me and waiting, how many years was it? 6 years.
6-ish, yeah.
Okay. That gave, looking back, that was 6 years that I didn't have to train him. I mean, if he would have came with me in college, it would have been a whole nother, I won't say nightmare, but it would have just been a time-consuming.
It would have been a grind.
Yeah, it'd have been a grind. So when he came with me in 6 years and we talk lingo from an investment standpoint, I mean, he and I are on the same page, and we already know because he's had that experience trained somewhere else. It might be from a different perspective, which is good, okay? But I didn't have to, explain what a mutual fund was and what various investment products or investment styles or that type thing. I think he would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been great because he's obviously opened my eyes to the ways that his business is run working with individuals, whereas obviously I was doing more institutional type things and just me same way of, teaching him and explaining things how, I mean, I describe our industry just like technology. It evolves every year, right? Back when he started, investments were very transactional, right? You would sell somebody a mutual fund, you charge them a commission, and that's how it does. I mean, within the last 5-10 years, that's now transitioned to like fee-based. I charge 1% based on total assets. So just little things like that have evolved that, again, I got thrown into the weeds with in corporate world that I think helped us, obviously scale and grow our business to this day. That, nothing against Dad that he might have not done just due to maybe being towards retirement. I don't know.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Well, no, I guess my comment was, would you have probably transitioned as quickly to, fee-based planning? I don't know.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the industry's changed. So would I? Yes, I probably would have. With you coming on board, it probably went quicker. So Adam's exactly right. When I first got into the business, it was a transaction-oriented business, and now it's more of an advice-based business, of where Adam had mentioned that you charge a fee based off of assets under management. So that's where the industry's going. Adam's helped out tremendously in that. And one of the things I think I'll bring up at this stage is, Adam has taken the step to get a CFP, which is huge in this industry.
What's a CFP?
Adam?
Certified financial planner. It's probably the most brutal thing I've ever done. I mean, Dawson and I have talked about it. I mean, you essentially have to go back to college for 12 months. So it's called a certificate in financial planning. So I got a certificate in financial planning from NYU through an online program. And then you sit and you test prep for about 4 months, December to mid-March. And then March is test time, and you take a 7-hour exam in March.
Oh my God, 7 hours.
It was, I mean, it truthfully was, and Dad can attest to it. It was probably one of the most stressed times I've ever been. Obviously, the CFP, you're obviously trying to grow business, personal life, you name it. But all that tacked on to each other, and it was stressful. Behind me, I'm thankful I have it. The way the industry has evolved now, and I mean, I became an advisor 2021. Being a fiduciary didn't ever seem like that big of a deal, which is kind of crazy. But I feel like I get asked that question by every new client, potential client that comes in the door now. I don't know how Dad's experience is, but I get that a lot. And now as a CFP, I'm legally obligated to act as a fiduciary anytime I'm giving advice. It could be on life insurance. It could be on a financial plan, estate planning, you name it. Anytime I give advice, I'm a fiduciary, which is kind of a big deal now because you're legally obligated to do what's in the best interest of the client. Whereas if you're not a CFP, there might be other designations that allow you to do that. But if you're not a CFP or one of those other designations, you can only do it when doing a form of fee-based planning, or that 1% type deal. That's the only time you can really act as a fiduciary or are a fiduciary.
So you came on in 2021.
Yep.
How have you guys grown revenue since you came on? You don't have to get into like super specifics, but like y'all grown 600% or what's that kind of like looked like?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've doubled our fee-based, so which would be the 1% reoccurring revenue model in the last, I don't know, probably 2-3 years.
As a duo or just adding you on?
Duo. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
so both of you.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
See, as the president of the firm, I look on the other side. I look on the expenses.
What do the expenses look like? Yeah. No, I mean,
Adam's got all these great ideas, and they really would be great ideas, but you got to fund them.
Like Liquid Death for the office.
yeah, sponsorship.
Yeah.
New websites, new this, new that, which has all been good. I mean,
I think it's. I mean, Dad, there's true. I mean, there's a lot of things that we'd obviously like to do. Now, again, as a business owner and business owners, you have to think and weigh out your opportunity cost of doing certain things and not doing certain things. Right? Does it make sense to spend money here? How's it going to change, increase revenue, bring in new clients, or is it better spent over here?
Yeah.
That
makes sense.
And
but a lot of that
what-
stuff matters. I mean, like a good, really well-built website, I know a local contract company that just had a regular old website, like something that you could just build yourself. They didn't have like great SEO in there or anything else. And another company bought that company. And they kept it under the same name. And they were just kind of like the parent company of it and let it run independent, but they were the parent company. They had a new website built. And they started in March as like a new business technically, and they've already 4x'd last year's sales. They're not doing any different sales strategies. They just the website and the clicks from the website coming in. It's like crazy. It's just like
there's no doubt.
proper functioning optimal website, 4x their sales, and that's all. And they're just taking the calls.
Yeah.
My comment was more meant for a inside joke for Adam and I.
Yeah.
He's always wanting to spend money on very great ideas, but the revenue's got to be there.
Yeah.
In order to spend them, and then sometimes you do it anyway. But no, there's no doubt websites are very, very important.
It's just crazy what some of those things can do.
Oh yeah.
People will cheap out.
I mean, when you buy something, do you not Google? You'll Google it somewhere, right? If you're gonna go buy a car or whatever, you'll Google. Maybe not a car, but you're gonna Google it and then find the manufacturer, and you're gonna find who's gonna sell it locally. Well, they're doing the same thing with us. So you've got to have a website, otherwise, how's the consumer gonna know anything about you?
I'm sure the same thing's like with you guys at Nova, right?
Yeah.
They might not find us searching for financial advisor via Google, but when they find Adam Howard or Neil Howard at Envisage Wealth Advisors, they're probably Googling the website to find out more about you.
Right.
So if we have a archaic website that, looks like somebody did in their high school arts class, then
And hasn't been updated.
Then they might turn their way. And
I think he's making fun of my prior website.
I know I'm throwing a little dig, but I think that's one of those things that I think happened when I came on board. Dad probably knew that he needed to do some kind of update, but if it was just going to be him and he was going to retire in the next 5 or 10 years, it probably didn't make a ton of sense.
No, it didn't.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, but a lot of people don't even know that your website, especially with SEO now, should be looked at and updated every year. So like there's minor tweaks that need to be made to keep you at the top of the SEO list. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're not going to pop up on the top of the list in the search engine. Yeah. So there's like little things like that.
Yeah, it didn't need to happen 10 years ago.
Yeah, it didn't. Not at all.
Right. While we're on the topic of like making changes to the business, before Adam came on, was Adam was the first advisor you brought on? Or have you tried bringing on advisors before? Or what was it kind of before Adam? I mean, we kind of probably skipped over decade or so.
You probably did.
Yeah.
No, we did.
Because
We did.
you started right out of college just by yourself, right?
Well, I was with another gentleman, but
Okay.
essentially, yes.
So
Working for myself.
when did you, right? I mean, you're building your book, working for yourself. When did you jump to, it's my business solely without the other gentleman, hiring your first employee, all that?
I look at it was my business from day one, just simply due to the fact that nobody was paying a salary to me. So I was,
And I relate, like, I work here at Nova, and I have my own book, and I feel like I work for myself. So
exactly.
I relate.
Which is the same as myself. Over the years, I have brought others into the business. There are others still in the business that work through us, not necessarily through Envisage. It's somewhat, you'd have to understand how the structure is of the organizations that we have. But give you an example, I am an OSJ, which is the Office of Supervisory Jurisdiction, which simply means that I'm a registered principal and that I've got other people underneath me. What I do, though, is I let them brand their own way. So they might be branded a certain way. Another company name, for example, they don't brand under Envisage, which is fine with me. I mean, my ego's not that big that I require that.
Yeah.
But so yes, I've done that. Adam was the biggest challenge.
Probably.
No, he's done very well.
Let's go into a couple more details. What are some of the differences that you guys decided you were going to make besides the brand, maybe updating the website, working together as a unit instead of prior?
One of the first things was Adam wanted a fancy coffee pot in the office.
No, it's true. I'm a coffee snob. That was my first thing. I was like, I need some good coffee. Get rid of
Is
this.
this like an espresso machine?
No, it's a Breville coffee maker where you feed the beans in the back and it grinds it and does it all fresh for you right there.
Yeah.
Coffee snob.
He was shaking his head over there.
I'm not a Keurig guy.
You know what?
You should have just told him to pay it out of his book.
They sell the same stuff right at the convenience store on the way in. So, I didn't buy one for myself.
But no, little changes. Would you
Yeah, I
ask?
mean, you said you all basically doubled the fee base.
Yeah.
So is that kind of a change when you came in of like, hey, we really need to push this, and just your all strategy kind of changed?
Yeah, I think to an extent. I mean, I don't want to sit here and put words in Dad's mouth, but again, I keep talking about I joke with him all the time, or other people, that if I didn't come on board with him, he'd probably be, quote, retired today. Whereas me coming on board probably forced him to like look at business development and how to continue to grow and scale and things like that. So again, that was my job, was the pavement guy. Truthfully, I think, was get out, go to networking, meet lots of people, build relationships, gather new assets, because my name as an advisor wasn't known and probably still developing in Lexington, Central Kentucky, Cincinnati area, whereas Dad has done it for so long that people know who Neil Howard is, right? So it's a lot easier for him to organically gather assets to help grow the firm, whereas myself, I'm trying to educate, let people know what I do for a living, how we work as a firm, how we work with individuals, things like that.
Well, and you're a younger age too, so your friends are starting to mature to where they're like, hey, I'm actually able to save money and I'm not in a bunch of debt, so maybe I should actually like start doing something with this. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
if you would have done this when you were 22 coming out of college, people, who do you have to network to?
Right.
Like you're going to go to a networking event, you're going to be the youngest guy there, and none of your friends have any money.
Right.
So
You hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah. I mean, I describe, I'm nothing more than blessed, man. Like, I've got clients anywhere from, our age to people who are in their upper 60s, people who own, warehouses, and you name it. So I don't even necessarily have a certain age of people that I work with, but I love it that way because it gets you to see all different perspectives, and nobody's financial situation is the same. And Dad and I preach on this all the time to clients: is we're not product guys. And the reason we're not product guys is because there's nothing that fits every single person that comes through the office. So our job is to essentially learn, about you guys, what's important to you. what do you guys want to do in the next 10 years? When do you plan on retiring? Are you going to give things to kids, or are you going to spend everything you got? Right? Nothing's the same for individuals. So we like learning about people, and
this is what makes it fun in this business.
Absolutely.
And it's one of the reasons why I stay in it, is that you can go in with someone who's totally lost. They've got a drawer full of papers and investment statements, have no clue how it all interacts with each other. And you go in and you basically pull it apart, put it back together, and show them, here's what you got, here's how it interacts with each other, and here's what it's going to look like going forward. And when you do that every day, I mean, Adam and I was thinking about this on the way over here and stuff, of, thinking that you might be asking a question is, do you relate to him as a father-son at the office, or, like I'd mentioned earlier, more as a partner and stuff. And it's interesting because we actually do both, but on outside of the office, we're talking business. But it's good business. We're talking about, okay, the client that came in Thursday, they've got this problem, and we're constantly brainstorming 24/7, 7 days a week. Not in, where it gets boring, but it's really interesting. So that's what keeps me going in this business, and what's been a great with Adam, that I've got somebody now that I can really, because he knows what he's talking about. I mean,
it's probably re-energized you and kind of brought you guys together too.
He's a CFP, I'm not.
Right.
And I teasingly say that because I like to get some credit for him able to pass that test.
Doing it, learning it. Yeah.
Talk about a little bit, if you guys, and I know there might be some restrictions on this, but speak to it as much as you can. If someone like me came in your office, I have a couple businesses, rental properties, and I said, hey, I want to do something with my funds versus your typical 30-year corporate employee, just has a salary, no investments. How would you look at those individuals differently, and what's some of the things that y'all can do creatively to help them out?
Wow, that's all over the place.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think you can probably speak on it too. I think the misconception of what a financial advisor does is investment planning, right? To your point, not everybody is a corporate employee who just accumulates, has a 401k when they retire, need to figure out how to maximize that in retirement, so forth and so on, right? A true financial advisor should be able to look at your spider web of situations, right? And make sure they all interact or can facilitate with each other, right? To your point, you have to make sure you can bring everything together and make sure that, this business is, doing the best it can, tax planning wise, when you get to the age, how's that being transitioned to kids, or, are you going to work with an M&A company to talk about, an acquisition and selling, things like that.
And it's interesting because, as you indicated, you have a corporate employee who's got certain set of circumstances, and you've got the business owner who I'm saying or thinking that's who you were describing with real estate and that type of thing. They both have unique needs. Okay, at the end of the day, my personal opinion and my experience has been they're accumulating the money. Okay, whether through a 401k plan as an employee or outside in their own retirement plans or business properties or whatever they're doing, to eventually spend it one day and live off of, and or pass it to the next generation. So both of them have the same ending goals normally. It's just different ways that they arrived at it, or arrived to the point to come talk to us. So that's what Adam was mentioning earlier, that there's no two people alike. I don't think we've ever had two plans that are alike. And that's what makes it really fun and interesting, because we've got the world open to us on what we can do, essentially. There are a little bit of restrictions, but they're very minor. So we can essentially go whatever path we need to go to get to the goal that they're trying to accomplish. Right. But once again, it normally is, we're accumulating this money, I've turned 65 or 62 or 70 or whatever age, and now I need income from it. How do we get income from it? And or, once again, we also then want to pass the rest of it to the next generation. Okay, right. And some don't. I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, it's not my plan, it's your plan, but I'm going to show you how to do it efficiently.
I feel like I need financial advice, but I've never really gone to your typical quote unquote financial advisor because I've never had money to put into a mutual fund or 401k because I'm saving every penny to buy the next rental property or build the next Culver's. So,
well, I believe we're available at 1:00 on Monday.
And, my wife and I have a joke, like before we build the next restaurant, we're going to buy ourselves actual living room furniture because we still have Goodwill furniture in our living room furniture. Literally. I mean, that's what we have, just like Facebook Marketplace furniture all over our house because we've literally just reinvested everything that we have. It's like, okay, we gotta start spending some money on ourselves. Sure. And we've gotten to the point where the family's big enough, okay, we kind of need a bigger vehicle for Amber. Because right now when we take her car, my knees are in my face in the front seat because the car seats, are stuck and you can't move the back seats back any further. And so my seat has to go up. And I'm like, honey, how long can we last in this car? And then it's like, all right, how much money are we willing to spend on a new car? Because we still don't have living room furniture. And so somebody, will say oh, Weston, you need to, be putting money in a 401k. I'm like, I don't have any money to put in a 401k because I just bought a house. But my situation is completely different than, your typical corporate employee where they might not have that avenue where they can go into real estate or they can buy a business. So they need the 401k, they need the mutual fund, they need, whatever. They need to maximize their Roth or whatever to do that. But maybe I'm even still underutilizing some of those for some of the tax benefits that I'm not even aware of.
I mean, I always tell people, money is a very intimate thing, right? People don't like talking about money. I mean, how many people do you meet that you would be willing to just open up about your entire financial situation, right? It's hard. I don't enjoy doing it, and I do it for a living. If I meet some guy on the street that I just kick it off with and he starts asking me financial questions, I'm not going to tell him. So I think it can be intimidating to meet with an advisor. I just encourage people to start, right? It doesn't matter what you do. It could be real estate. It could be, mutual funds, just something minor. But I think to your point, you think about the diversification aspect, right? Real estate does great times. The stock market does great in times. But what if all your eggs are in one basket, right? It might be good to have something to carry you when that other side is bad, right? You're always going to be focused on what you're good at, right? That's what you should do. If you're good at real estate, you should focus on real estate, right? We look at the market all day long.
Well, and to Adam's point and stuff, and the way I think of it too, is it doesn't hurt to have that conversation with someone and just talk about the big picture. And hopefully they're not going to convince you to get out of what you love doing, okay? But talk about the big picture. Talk it through. And we've had lots of those conversations that end up, being fruitful for the client.
That makes sense.
Yeah, just have that conversation with them. Here's what I'm thinking.
Right.
What do you think?
Do you guys have or maybe you guys do this yourselves, do you guys have a CPA on staff that y'all can, or someone that you all refer to for tax savings advice?
So yeah, none of us are CPAs. We're not tax people. Obviously, we can speak high level on certain tax situations and tax aspects, but we're not going to give you, affirmative tax advice because at the end of the day, it's not what we do for a living. It's not what we're good at. So to your point, we have CPA relationships. We have attorney relationships that if something gets complex that we need to reel somebody in, we'll just drag the attorney in the office. And me, the attorney, and the clients will sit there at a conference table. We'll have a discussion, and you get all parties involved, right? Because at the end of the day, we're good at what we do. We're not going to start dabbling in something that we don't look at every single day.
Right. And what we can do, and I think we're very good at, and this might be where we separate ourselves from others, is that we can coach you along the way up to the point that you need to go meet with that attorney or CPA. And what I simply mean by that is instead of you just walking in to the attorney's office and say, here's my problem, or tell me what I need to be doing, you've already had that conversation to a point with us So you kind of know what you need to be doing, and you're just verifying it essentially, and perhaps getting other ideas from the attorney. So in other words, you're not going in green.
Yeah.
So that's
Here's
kind
all
of,
my stuff. Tell me what my problem is. You guys have already identified some concerns.
Yep.
And you can go to the attorney and say, hey, these are my concerns. Where should I go from here?
There you go. Exactly. So you're not going entirely green, be it the CPA or the attorney.
Right. That makes sense.
What's kind of the next steps in Envisage? I mean, kind of eventually it'll probably be what Adam ran the show eventually.
Maybe one
Kind
day.
of like, is there kind of a
People,
future plan?
People will ask me all the time, say, when are you going to retire? Why haven't you retired? And I'll be honest, like Adam says, prior to him coming on board, I would say, probably about right now, within the next year or so. But due to the fact that he's now with me, I'm having fun with him, being around, teaching him, learning from him learning from me, the business aspect, and even learning from him on a personal basis. Things that, you don't see. You think of him as your little son or your little kid or whatever. Now he's my business partner, and you see different, aspects of people. But I really say it due to COVID. I had started doing video conferencing prior to COVID. Really wild. A client of mine up in Louisville had actually got me started doing video conferencing, but it was hard to catch on, particularly for people of my age group. But now COVID's come along, and anybody and everybody knows how to operate a video camera typically nowadays. So my point with that is that, I do like to travel. That's something I've given to Adam as well. He likes to travel.
Slippery slope.
Yeah. But my thought process is this, and it's actually occurred, is, give me an internet connection anywhere in the world. Give me a laptop. Let me take my little camera with me, and we can have video conferences on your investment portfolio or whatever you want to talk about. And I could be anywhere in the world, theoretically. So with that said, being the fact that
The Olympics starts tonight,
Yeah, exactly. Don't tempt us. We've done things like that before.
No, and it's...
So I can actually, I don't need to retire. Does that make sense? I don't want to retire. I'm having fun, and I think I'm giving some valuable advice to people still from a client standpoint. But, as far as, people to go to retire so they can enjoy vacation time and spending time doing this and doing that, I guess what I'm saying is I can do both, and I've done both. I've gone to certain places and stuff and been sitting by the pool, and I tell my wife, I've got to run. I got to go back up to the room. I need to make a conference call. So I'll do a video conference for maybe an hour, and I go back down to the pool. Plus with cell phones nowadays, you can be anywhere. Could you get new clients that way? Yeah, probably be tough. I'm not saying it's not possible, but, I can maintain and work well. I don't know how Adam feels about that. Maybe it's the first time he's ever heard me say this, but Adam, I'm not going anywhere.
No, and it's funny. We joke about it, or I do a lot of, Dad just trying to get him retired, get him out the door, blah, blah, blah. It's been nice because... him and I have just had certain discussions. I think my ambitions, over the next 20 years probably looked a little different than Dad, whereas, I'd like to have 3, 4, 5 advisors at Envisage, some support staff, maybe a marketing person. We've talked about, looking at different buying opportunities and maybe trying to find older financial advisors who are trying to get out the door, who might not have any succession plans, and looking like what that might look like, and partnering with them and potentially buying their book off of them. And truthfully, I don't think I could do a lot of that if I couldn't keep him around. So it's somewhat of a luxury, as much as I want to see my dad retire and travel the world with my mom and not have to stress out about work, right? To an extent, it is nice and has that luxury of keeping him around.
Yeah. I really like your outlook that you've kind of transitioned to of just live life and work when you can and vacation when you can. My grandpa had a saying, the second you retire is the second you start dying. And as humans, we're meant to get up and get out and do something every day. And I think there's a lot of value in that. My grandpa wanted to be buried in his work boots. He was a farmer, and we buried him in his work boots. And I have a business partner who's 84, and he is the most energized. I mean, I struggle to keep up with him. I mean, the guy is insane. And he came to town probably 3 months ago, and he wanted to look at properties. And we went 600 miles in like 12 hours looking at properties. And, you know, he was like, oh, I saw this. Like, let's go over here. And I'm like, wait, I'm getting tired.
I need a break.
And the man flew his own plane, still at 84, into town and flew out of town all within that time. So I got to go home and go to bed.
Yeah.
He had to get on a plane and go fly.
You know, it's interesting you say that and stuff, because I have gotten, I don't know if it's the luxury or not, but I have got clients that have got pretty sizable portfolios and they're not using them. And I have to beg them. It's like, you know, you're not getting younger. I mean, what do you still got this big pile of money? I mean, you're not going to run out. It'd be almost impossible to run out of money. You know, why don't you start spending it? Well, what do I need to do? Go take vacation. Go take a 2-month cruise or something. You know, so I'm very pro. Yes, you need to set money aside, but you got to live life.
Right.
You know, because you never know when the good Lord might take it away from you. So you've got to enjoy life today. It's like when I sit down with a budget with people. You know, you go through your budget of fixed expenses and so forth, and you know what that number is. You know what your income is, particularly if you're a salaried employee, and you might have XYZ left over. All right, now you're the only person that could be fair to yourself out of that what's left over. And I'm talking above and beyond your entertainment allowance that you're giving yourself and food allowance and some vacation. You still might have some left over. You're the only person who can be fair to yourself of how much of that do you want to set aside for your future. 75% of it? Half of it? Now, if you tell me 10% of it, I'm going to tell you you're probably not being fair to yourself for your future. So let's just say they say half. So, okay, so let's set half of it aside on a monthly basis. Go below the other half. I mean, go below it. Go do whatever you want to do. Because you know in the back of your mind, you're still saving money. And you're also enjoying life today. I mean, I've run across some people that, I mean, I can't really tell them how to live, but it's almost sad that they don't do anything because they're saving money. They're broke.
Right.
Well, you're broke because you're saving everything. You know? I mean, that's why you don't do anything, is because you're saving everything. I mean, what are you scared of? What are you afraid of? I mean, you've got a big pile of money, and you're keeping building more. I mean,
It seems like it's like a pendulum swing from one side to the other. There's the people that spend $1,000 a month on restaurants, and they always feel like they're broke. And every single time they get a pay raise, they're still broke because they just increase their spending. You know,
you're exactly right.
And then you have the other end where, you know.
So I'm trying to get that person in the middle and say,
Right.
take half that what you feel is left over, put it aside. Now you feel good about yourself because you're saving money. Take the other half and go out to eat twice as much or something.
Yeah, a balanced life. Yeah.
There you go. Because you're exactly right. I mean, it's scary. I know people that are my age that, you know, I don't want to speak too much on this because we all know these type people, but you know that they've got a lot of house and they got a lot of boat and a lot of car and a lot of things, and I don't know how they're going to retire, because when that Social Security check kicks in at 65, that's all they've got, and it's going to be an eye opener.
Right.
And you can't convince them any other thing. Or I haven't been able to.
Yeah. I have a employee that called me not too long ago, and a prior employee that called me not too long ago still asked kind of for some advice. And this individual was able to go to a different position and pretty much double what they made. And they were asking me, you know, break down. I want to kind of get into investing some money, and how do I start doing that? And we started talking about some options, and I was like, you know, so how much, you know, it doesn't matter what investment it is, it's all a risk. So if you want to buy a real estate property tomorrow, I can teach you how to do it out of, like, no money out of pocket today. You're going to have to borrow, but now you're borrowing and you have risk. What if you need a new AC unit tomorrow? What if you need a new roof? So how much money do you have right now in your bank account if something disastrous went down on a property you bought? And they told me the number, and I was like, all right, well, we got to fix that. if you want to start investing, you got to grow what's in your savings, because every single asset you take on, now you have more risk. I have a friend that's heavily in real estate. We know it's a mutual friend here, and he had 6 AC units go out in 1 month. Well, it's like $36,000. So if you don't have $36,000 in the bank, then you're screwed. You're like going to have to sell a house.
Well, pissed off tenants.
So,
I want to talk to his HVAC person, because the last one I had was a lot more than that.
well, these are small houses. So I'm sure the houses that he's acquiring are 1,200.
No, it's interesting.
1,000 square foot houses.
Yeah, we're off topic, but yeah, in one of my office condos, golly, it's probably 8 years ago, I spent XYZ, and it went out again, and sure enough, I had to have a new one, and they gave me the price on it. It's like, what? Are you serious? It was like twice as much, just in 9 short years.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I was shocked.
HVAC equipment's gone through the roof. Just anything refrigeration. We've seen that in the restaurant. And what's sad is it's typically cheaper to replace it than it is to fix it, depending on what it is.
That's kind of the story I was told. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, we have an issue with our fish cart in one of the restaurants, and it's running like 3 degrees too warm, and we can't get it colder, so we're having to like dump ice in it. And I'm not even calling a tech. I'm just buying a new one. Because I looked up the prices of the compressors and some of the different components, and they're all like $900 to $1,200, and you add 5 hours of labor on that. That's an extra $500 or $600. So you're looking at $1,500 to fix a $200 piece of equipment.
I feel the same way about printers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of buying a $180 printer cartridge, I can just buy a brand new machine for $300.
Right. Yeah. Preach. Oh, goodness. So getting back on topic, we went down a little bit of a tangent, but that's okay. Kind of the long-term goal, Adam, you're kind of wanting to bring on some more office staff, maybe on a couple more advisors, and when the timing's right. Anything else exciting coming up for you guys in the near future?
No, I don't, not that I can think off the top of my head. At this stage, I'm 3 years in, so I'm still at the point where I'm trying to grow my own book. Obviously, get to a place to where, hopefully at some point, Dad will let me take over overhead, which I'm sure he will be more than happy to do so. But just get to a point where I can essentially take the reins from him to where he can, again, go do the things that he loves and not stress out as much about work, do things with mom and things like that. So, at this stage, we're just trying to grow, get a book to a point to where we can be in a great place, or I can be in a great place solo. And, at that point, maybe we start looking to hire and bring on, some younger, motivated people who want to get into the sales side and love the industry, and then develop some form of training program to get them, ground running day one.
Yeah.
I'd love to, and it might just be the corporate side of me to where, my whole career before being an advisor, I was in an office with, 10, 15, 20 different people around me. There's always noise everywhere. So I just, that type of environment I really enjoy. So being able to have, an office full of, call it 10 people of all different job titles and experiences and specialties, and being able to just grow a company and help more people. I think there's a lot of education needed in our industry, and the more troops we have doing so and help and teach and educate, I think the better we can help people.
Right. Makes sense. I'm a social worker as well. Like if I'm not around, I'm a group project guy, and I'm not the group project guy that's just going to slum off. Like I will work better when I'm with a group. And if I'm not in a group, it can wait tomorrow,
Sure,
whatever. But when I have to produce something and someone else is counting on me, I always seem to do better.
Yeah, well, you have the accountability. The athlete in me, if I've got another young advisor in there who's killing it, it's obviously going to motivate me just because I want to compete. Obviously, we have the same result in growing the firm and the company, but, I'm a competitive guy. I would be a liar if I said that competing with others didn't motivate me.
Right, yeah. You guys have anything else you want to highlight before we sign off?
No, just thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
It's been great.
thanks for coming on, sharing your story. Did you guys happen to, have you guys listened to the episode of Biff Buckley?
No.
He did insurance, and I would definitely check that out. The reason I say that is it was a father-son duo. His dad had passed already, but he described really well how it was taking over the business from his dad, what that looked like, and just the way he grew that. I loved that episode. He sold insurance.
Yeah, the property casualty side.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
he sold insurance, but it was kind of cool of how he realized, all right, this is my niche, and this is the staff I need to hire around me so I can keep doing what I'm really good at, and we can grow. And so he was really good at sales. And so he focused a lot on bringing on customer service and organizational staff in so he could keep growing the sales. And he did bring on other salespeople, but it was a balance as he grew. Yeah. And
he had a whole method too of he'd hire someone, basically interview them, run them through some tests, and then basically decide you're going to be service or you're going to be sales.
Yeah. It was really cool.
Well, yeah, it's the concept and stuff is you want to put people on the bus, but you want to make sure they're in the right seat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to do.
I like that.
Didn't you used to do some kind of test like that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hire
Still
people?
do. Still do. Yeah, because you don't want to force somebody who's good in marketing into sales or vice versa, or not marketing necessarily, but into, I don't want to say secretarial, but being an assistant operations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the worst thing to do. Doesn't help anybody out, particularly the organization. But, I'm all for what Adam's talking about on bringing on new people and so forth. And I think we're pretty close to that happening. What I'd like to see and stuff, and this is happening as well, is, once again, I do like to travel. I'm not getting younger. I can operate and can maintain my existing clientele, once again, anywhere as long as I have an internet connection. But just the day-to-day activities, turn over the operations on a daily basis to Adam. I let him, this is yours, and not only of the business itself, but even on the office condo type problems and issues that occur, like heating and air, those type things.
Things that you dealt with too long that no longer you want to do.
Exactly. Things that take time that I really don't want to spend time doing and I can't take care of if I'm out of town. So those type of things. And we're very close to that, probably closer than he realizes.
Now, does that come out of his book or your book or shared book?
Yeah, it's my condo. So at this stage,
There you go.
I own it. So we'll figure that out later on.
That makes the blow a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, and it's kind of funny, and we talked early on about the whole forcing me to mature and just be an adult, for lack of better words. And I think Dad hates this, but I enjoy now being able to pay for things. Like we have meetings in New York here in 2 weeks, and I told him I'm paying for the hotel because we're going to hang out for a few days afterwards. And I can do that now, so I want to be able to do it.
Well, it's interesting because that's one of the the things I always think about, and we've talked about this, is when he first came on, I was treating him like a son. I wanted to pay for everything because he's my son. But you know what? You're a business partner now, so we will share.
Yeah. Well, and even being able to do something for your dad and your mom at some point. I mean, there's something about that level of growing up and being able to mature and being able to do that just makes it enjoyable.
Yeah.
Being able to do that.
Sounds like you need to be buying lunch, though.
Well, I could take a new car.
I'll see what I can do.
Get the Tesla Roadster.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a whole nother. We could sit here and talk cars forever.
Cars and travel.
Yeah.
Cars and travel. We both like to travel.
Well, thank you guys for coming on. It's been a blessing. What's your all's website?
Envisage Wealth Advisors.
Okay. Check out envisagewealthadvisors.com, and we'll link that to the show notes. Don't forget to check out our website, commonwealthconnectionspodcast.com, and Envisage will have their own page on there if you guys are interested. Thank you guys for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.